All right. Well, thank you, Kamaleshvara, for being here today and joining us all the way from Croatia on your vacation time. So I appreciate you being here. And today we're going to be talking about spiritual science. And before we get started, I would love just for, any of our new guests here at PLT Live Session, if you could just give us a little bit of a background about you. And yeah, that would be a great way to start.
Okay. So my name Kamaleshwar is a Sanskrit name. Kamal means lotus flower and Ishvara the Lord. The Lord sitting in the lotus flower. The deeper meaning is that I should live in this world without that the world is living in me. My mind should be above the world. So I should not be attached to the things and not get too much involved into the roller cast of life. And Acharya, an Acharya means a person, a teacher who is teaching by own conduct, by own example. So when I say something, I should do it first. That's the meaning. So I'm my let's say legal name is Christian Franceschini. I'm from South Tyrol, North Italy. So I'm German speaking mother tongue, and I'm also Italian, of course, being in Italy. And I'm 59, have a family of 2 kids. Now they are 21. Lucas and Jogesh is his Sanskrit name, and Chandra, she's 19. My wife is Christina, Krishna Priya, she's also an Acharya. And I got initiated into the path of Ananda Marga, sadhana, meditation, in 1987, April. So it's now 35 years, 86 almost. I'm practicing every day, always, at least twice a day. I have gone through some different trainings. Before I became an Acharya, I went into yoga teacher training. I met personally also in India Sri Anandamurti after such a voluntary training. And I was also responsible for several social and economic projects. Like I was teaching yoga to the newcomers in the seminars, and I was translating from English what I could understood to Italian from the different acharyas. So slowly I learned what was in their mind, how they approach different subject, and at the end I underwent a 4-year training in naturopathy and iridology. So mainly the classical hydrotherapy, herbs, food, fasting, so everything that is related to the classical naturopathy. And iridology is the technique to understand from the iris what type of humors, what type of physical base is there in the body. So that's my first background. And then I'm teaching since 25 years to the public schools, to the, let's say, children from 4 years to 18. Main age is it's the primary, between 6 and 11 years. But I have also high school and kindergarten, but my preferred is that age. I'm a director of Yogis Academy, means Yoga Intuitional Science Academy for Ananda Marga Gurukul since 2015. It's a 3-year course how to go deep into yoga history, yoga philosophy, yoga physiology and anatomy, yoga psychology, it means biopsychology and different level of mind, yoga modules of yoga and society, yoga and art, and of course yoga and the practice and the concepts, deep concepts about and the different scriptures that are somehow a type of authority within the yoga science. Yeah, and my Acharya training, I underwent Acharya training in 2012. First was Tattvic training, so to understand the deeper meaning of everything that is related to the intellectual part and also to the practical part. And then 2012 in September, I became Family Acharya. And Some years later, I underwent to senior acharya training. So it's another training.
But thank you so much. What an incredible background, guy. Very, you have a long history and a lot of credentials behind you. So that's fantastic. So I think you're the perfect person to be talking to about this subject at the current moment. So can you start off explaining what is spiritual science?
Yeah, spiritual science is a method, a set of theories that are definitely must be applied. We can say first by experimenting different practices, they understood that behind there was a science. So we can say first the practice came and then the theory. So we can say spiritual science is 99% practical and 1% theoretical. But that theory, it's also called the theory of the spiritual cult in the proper term of the sense of the term, that we need to achieve a goal. What is our goal? Spirituality. So science towards that spirituality. So spirituality is different than spiritualism. So spirituality, we can mainly say this feeling of existence that we have. That's not the mind. The mind is also a type of existence. But soul or consciousness, as we call it, Atman in Sanskrit, is that part that always is witnessing the mind, witnessing the change of the body, witnessing the up and downs of the mind. So spiritual science mainly is concerned with the realization, to understand, not intellectually, but to prove the true nature of spirit. And for this, one has to tune in to that deep eye that we have. And in order to go in that deep eye that we have, our deeper self, we need to regulate the physical and mental energies. Means we have to make this body, this machine, performing in such a way that we get the best outcome for the mind. Because mind is the product, as we understood in metaphysics, the mind is the product of the matter. So body can produce, matter can produce mind. Of course, the question can come from where matter comes. That's a metaphysical question, and we can maybe relate later on this. But our body produces mind, and the more we grow in our life, more this matter becomes complex. Hormones differ from age to age, and they are able to produce something more subtle than the body itself, and that's the mind. We call it ectoplasm. In Sanskrit, chitta, mind stuff. So with the mind stuff, this transformation, this sublimation is not finished. It has to continue. So also within the mind, we have another process. Like in the body, there is a process from solid to ethereal, these 5 fundamental factors: solid, liquid, luminous, aereous, and ethereous. This going from the crude matter to the subtle matter, it's already there in matter. So in the matter, we have already a range from crudity to sublimity. But then beyond matter, we have mind. So also in mind, you can have the crude mind and the subtle mind. So there is 5 levels of mind, of objective mind, and this mind is made out of volume and a mass, more subtle than the electrons. So spiritual science has to not only make this ectoplasm out from matter, increase the volume and the mass, but also has to channelize and powder down this psychic mass into consciousness. So spiritual science is a process of transforming matter into mind and mind into consciousness. And how to create that's a whole methodology. There's a whole application of different science, breathing, repeating sound, concentrating on certain plexus, certain chakras, having certain feelings, relating it to the position of certain glands. So it is a very practical science that is related on different other science. And so we can say spiritual science is the interaction of physical science, so breathing, proper food, using proper the water, cooling down the body, detoxing the body. Then we have also the psychic science. What should I think? How should I act? No, how I should relate with other entities around me. So this is a whole big science of how to channelize this mental strength into something more subtle. Otherwise, as Sri Sri Anandamurti says, there can be a lot of extravaganza. So we know most of the problems in the society today are due to physical and mental extravaganza. Means not proper utilization of this accumulated physical or mental energy into something that is more, we can say, blissful oriented. In body, we get pleasure. In mind, we get happiness. But in soul, in consciousness, we get bliss. So we can have like and dislike, happiness and unhappiness, but bliss has not the negative part. So the spiritual science is just focusing how to give that human being that experience that is everlasting. You may be physically sick, because we say here in Italian that nobody dies in a healthy condition. When you die, something must there, some problem. So you can also mentally, with the time, the brain somehow has to degenerate. We try to make this degeneration very slow, but at the end, when you are 100 years, 120 years, 150 years old, it's difficult for the mind to relate with that old brain. The cells are not so fresh like the children. We can have some process to make them, let's say, be in shape for a long time, but after sometimes degeneration must be there. But the blissful state doesn't depend on the body, doesn't depend on the mind. This is the true knowledge what one should get. So your existence, if it is fulfilled with that internal spiritual bliss, it's the most important thing in life. And spiritual science has to teach you immediately these things. When you are at the age of 5 years, it's the best age to start. Before there is difficulties for that body, that mind to sit long, to take responsibility. So we can say spiritual science is taught from the 5 years on, and you can do until the last day. So it's like to say an integrated science. You cannot just do spiritual ideation. If the body is sick, if the body don't eat proper food, if the body takes drugs, then mind cannot function properly. If mind doesn't function properly, it is almost impossible to focus the mind. Mind will run after material and psychic things, pabula, we say, occupations. And then if you run towards in one direction, you cannot go in the other one. So mind can do only one thing, not two things. Therefore, in order to experiment your deepest eye, your spirit, for some time during the spiritual practice, you have to focus completely on that deeper eye. And this is not easy in the beginning, not easy. It takes years.
I think something important that you brought up too was the integration and the idea of the methodology, like a universal methodological approach. I think is something that you brought up was really important. And I do like the fact that bliss has no negative counterpart. I really appreciate that. I think that's something to grasp really tightly onto as we seek that. So how did you approach the study of spiritual science?
Yeah, when it is difficult to say in a certain age you get to that. It is like a desire. Everything comes from the desire, internal desire. So in my case, I was not so aware, I must be honest, that I was looking for this spiritual science. But somehow internally, for many, many years, I was thinking, who am I? What I'm doing on this planet? Why am I a human being and not an animal or like a plant? What is there after life? And is there anything bigger than me? Is this universe done by somebody, some intelligence? No? I declare myself as an atheist. When they asked me before the military service what I believe, I said, I don't believe in anything. Then they asked me, you are an atheist? You can say yes. And so they declared me atheist. And but I understood that it was like my idea that there should not be some spiritual entity was mainly a reaction of the exploitation religions has done on human being. And I have been also somehow gone through that experience. Therefore, I was like, if this is God, science, or God, the path to go towards God by using external rituals, by feeling guilty, all these things they were not fitting in my mind. But at the same time, I was somehow desperate to know what is all this that we have around. Nothing cannot come from something cannot come from nothing. So, as having a scientific background, uh, I was feeling there must be something, and that I want to know. That what I want to know in order to get free from all this fear, anxiety. This is the main thought that came in my mind, and within few months, I got a yoga book, and that yoga book, the first one, I was in the military service, was Yoga and Sex. So, you know, this is I was 22. Everybody was in that flow, and but going through that book, I understood I have to be really more deeper than I should not go just beyond on the surface. I understood there are deeper eyes than just the body and the mind. So I really said, I want to have this experience. And after I quit the military service, it was in January. In April, I got initiation in spiritual sadhana, and I didn't know that was spiritual science. I just wanted to do some meditation, to have psychic experience, to expand my mind, to know more, without using drugs, of course. So that was, I think, my strong desire has somehow brought me to this path. And within a few months, I had everything, but I didn't know what it was. I just applied to my daily life, and I stopped to smoke, I stopped to eat meat, I stopped to drink alcohol, I stopped to say bad words. Now all these things somehow had changed in me. I had problem with my father. I became the best friend of my father again. So it was like a metamorphosis inside. So therefore, um, after seeing this result within, I can say, a quite revolutionary change came within 6 months. My father, who was very skeptical, he was a police officer. By seeing what I have done before and how I got transformed after 6 months of this practice, he said, "This is not normal." He was saying, "We are going from one extreme to the other." No? And he was so inspired that he also started to do spiritual science. So it's like you see the result. It's not something you have to believe. It's not some opinion. Opinion has to do with intellect. I can change my opinion. But certain experience, certain realization, they are no more opinion. They're part of you. So when they are there, you want to keep them. And you can degenerate again if you are not careful. But normally you want to double the experience, not to make it half or lose that experience. So by applying physical science, yoga lifestyle from the morning to the evening, how I eat, how I drink, how I sleep, how I breathe, how I relax, which asanas, which posture I do to make my hormonal system more harmonious. All these things worked very efficiently. And then what should I think? How I should behave? All these things has changed a lot, and so I became more blissful. And when they say Ananda Marg is the path of bliss, I had the proof that before I was maybe happy or unhappy, I like things or dislike, but the bliss was increasing, is increasing more and more. So that was the proof for me that spiritual science is working, at least on me. I have the proof.
I love the story about your father, and I can relate my own story, just how everything accelerated so quickly in a very short period of time when I was introduced to the spiritual science. So, and also what it would be, I mean, you said you were 22. I mean, how wonderful would it be if we were introducing this to 5-year-olds all over the world, you know? We could, yeah, so it's fantastic. So, speaking of, how would you define the primary principles of or criteria of spiritual science?
Yes. I mean, of course, science has a laboratory, and the laboratory, in our case, in spiritual science, it is the physical body. We can measure things. Mental body, we can infer. We cannot measure everything from mind. Maybe now some techniques are there from neuroscience, and with good softwares, we can maybe understand a little bit more, but it's very difficult. We're going in the subtle realm, in the abstract. And spiritual, it's even more abstract than mind. So the principles are somehow, you can understand them in a rational way too. This is not coming from the rationality, pure rational thinking, but is coming from the intuition that has some rational support. And at the end, also some empirical and practical application. So the principles is that the human being is made out of the same matter, or let's say the same substance than the universe. So in the universe, we can see there are different fundamental factors: the solid factor, the liquid factor, the luminous factor, the aerial factor, and the ethereal factor. You can see this in our body. Sound is ethereal factor. We breathe in and breathe out. We have the aerial factor. Our body has heat, so the luminous factor is there. Bodies, so much liquids are circulating in the body, so we have the liquid in our body. Also, the solid part is in our body, bones. So we have the same. The earth has physical, liquid, solid, liquid, all these elements you can find in the universe. The stars are luminous, and there is an ethereal element in the whole universe. So sound is ethereal. So when I think about the principle of it's not so far away from the normal science. The only thing is the physical science doesn't go beyond the 5 fundamental factors. Now there are some applied psychological science. They try to go beyond. They always relate with something still physical, but we know philosophy is a pure psychic science. How to think properly, rationally, logically, and so the criteria is also in the level of mind. The analogy that I use a lot is like that of water, H2O, no? So we have 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 of oxygen. That composed elements, we call it water, but it can be ice and can be vapor, steam. So also what we see here, this body is like the most aggregate part of this steam. So matter is actually not so different than consciousness. It's just a different state of that substance. And in nature, we see that everything comes from the subtle to the crude. But in biology, we see that from the crude you can make something subtle, like the whole evolutionary theory is not. It's just observing how from the matter mind evolved and created life, and this life gets more complex until the human being has some self-knowledge, knowledge that I exist beyond, let's say, or above my mind and my body. So the principles that science uses to investigate life, it's also it's also in spiritual science. We just try to get more into the principle, what is behind this universe. If we say this body comes together, stays together until we have a mind, the moment we die, what happens to this body is disintegrating, right? Solid goes to solid, liquid to liquid. All the molecules go back to its original state, they get transformed, metamorphosed. So actually the mind is the glue of this body. Without the mind, the body cannot stay together. So mind is actually the important factor to keep this physical structure together. Any physical structure needs a mind. If you have like a house, this house stays together until human beings are there and take care of the house. If no human being is there, the house will after 1 million of years will be gone. You may use now maybe some robots who fix the house, some software who keeps the house, but at the end you need people who run the robots, who run the softwares. So the psychic entity is essential for the physical existence. So also this universe, having a physical existence, having an order, there is different laws, gravity, attraction. There are so many laws in the universe. They work on us and they work also on a big scale. So saying this, there must be some psychic entity behind this physical body called universe. Astronomers are studying the physical body of the cosmic mind. So the cosmic mind has certain characteristics, but you understand it only with your mind. You cannot measure that mind with physical things. You need a mind, like we are talking. You are now measuring or understanding or trying to understand what I'm saying. Yes, without mind, you cannot understand me. So in that way, we need, in order to get into subtle realm, we need subtle principles, criteria to understand. A teacher can give only some scores to the students if he has a mind that functions in that. I cannot give a certain evaluation on physics if I am not a teacher of physics. So I need to have a mind set up for that. And in order to understand spirituality, I need to merge my mind into the spirit. So we have this spirit, we have this I feeling, deeper I feeling. So this is going beyond mind. With a meter, I cannot measure the intelligence of a boy. I can measure maybe my car here. I can measure how much it takes from here to the beach. But with this meter, I cannot measure the honesty of a person. I cannot measure how crooked a person is. So, same, the mind has not capacity to measure consciousness. This is the limits of the physical science or psychological science. They think with the mind, and that's also the limits of religions. Religions try with the intellect to make people, give them an idea, an opinion, how God is. It is in the sky, he's like this, he's green, yellow, whatever. But it is something going beyond. So if you want to go into abstract, you have to become more subtle. And this is all about the spiritual science. How become so subtle that you understand things, or let's say you become that idea. Like the criteria artists use. Artists has different criteria to evaluate art. I'm not an artist in that sense. I may be artist in other things, but I cannot evaluate certain melodies, or he's really good in, oh, he composed these things so beautiful. I can say, yeah, I like it, but I cannot judge. I'm not trained into that. If you get trained, then I may also understand this artist has a better expression or more subtle expression of that. So the criteria or principle of spiritual science are not easy to understand for those who are mainly concerned with what is the senses or using the pure intellect.
Oh, you did touch a little bit on it, but how does spiritual science differ from traditional or conventional science?
Yeah, as I told you, when I focus on one thing, for example, when I focus only on a physical aspect of a human being, let's say I see a person who has a disease, I can do all research on the physical level. What is there biochemically, how anatomically has certain change, how the physiology can be changed with certain hormones, with certain chemistry. But maybe that person has also psychological problems. Now it is accepted that certain people get sick because of mental stress, of anxiety, of fear. No, so we have like a psychic component that's inferring into the physical level. So physical science cannot understand psychic science. That's the limit. And psychic science may understand physical science. We say an intelligent person may understand a stupid person, but a stupid person cannot understand an intelligent person. So the more you are subtle, more you are expanded your mind, more you understand. So crude science cannot understand subtle science. So psychology cannot understand spirituality. It can help in dealing with psychological matters. It can relate with biochemistry on certain biochemical issues. We know how hormones are interfering with the mind, how the breathing is influencing the mind. We know this. And we say it, you cannot just separate body and mind. There is some link between body and mind. Mainly with your breathing, you can influence the frequency of your mind thought, or with the hormones, you may change. So that are somehow the biopsychological link between physical science and mental science or psychological science. But what is the link between psychological science and spiritual science? How do you relate to that? That's another science. It's another way. And until now, at least in the West, nobody has gone so deep. They have tried, but because the spirituality was the main how to say, field of religions. Religions was dealing with spirituality, or we say also with dogmas. So philosophers and scientists mainly were just thinking about physical or metaphysical part of human science. They never went into so deep spiritual science, because one thing is the theory of spirituality. Okay, everybody's one, everything comes from one. We can see these 5 fundamental factors in us. We can see the mind in us, so it must be also outside. We can see the soul, or we can feel the soul in us, so there must be a cosmic soul too. There must be a cosmic consciousness. This is like some mental understanding about spirituality, but it doesn't give you the proof. It doesn't give you the bliss. So the bliss you get once you have gone within yourself, and that's actually something spiritual science has. How to awaken the spiritual energy into your body. We have this Kundalini, the first chakra. How to awaken that? What type of practice you do in order to raise that spiritual energy into your Sushumna channel, in your channel inside the backbone? How do you make this energy go to the pineal gland? How you get the secretion from the pineal gland in order that you get the bliss not only in your mind but also in your body? So these things in the normal science has no idea. And in one way, the yogis who invented, the Tantra yogis who invented this spiritual science, they were mainly concerned with how to obtain bliss. We can have physical knowledge, psychic knowledge, but how to attain permanent spiritual knowledge, bliss. So that was the main target. And they understood that they have to be in a balance with physical energy and with the mental energy, not to suppress physical energy, not to suppress mental energy, just to channelize it all the time. And then we can say, if mundane science is mainly here to give pleasure, why is science there? Why there is a science of robotics? Why there is a science of how to make cars? How there's a science how to make softwares? It's just to increase the pleasure of human beings. Once you have scientific knowledge, you know how to make things better. Okay, for example, I am giving this interview in my camper. It's a very small camper. It's called California, like in America. It's like a small bus, but inside here I have fridge, I have water, I can cook, 4 people can sleep, but it's only 5 meters long and 1.90 meters high. I can open the roof, sleep upstairs. I have heating system. Also, all these technical things that science has somehow, engineers have worked on it, and we have softwares I can program when to heat, how much to heat. All these things is just that when I go to holiday, I have more pleasure. I don't need to run here and there to get the water. I just open here my tap, I get it. If I want some fresh drink, I just open here my box and take it out because I have 2 batteries. So science is here to help people. For example, in medicine, it is helpful to make people get better in shorter time. Surgery is incredible. With surgery, you need a lot of technical knowledge, and with surgery, you can save so many lives. But it is just for the physical part. Once you have removed the cancer and the person goes back to a very negative environment, okay, his cancer is gone for some time. But then how is his mind? So we try to accept what has physical and psychic science has developed, but it is a relative science. So the difference is normal science, what scientists are, it's relative, means it is under the bondage of time, place, and person. Spiritual science goes beyond. And the two science, they are not in an opposite. They should not be opposite. Physical and mental science should help a lot human beings to get rid of all this unnecessary work that we have to do, and we cannot dedicate to our spiritual growth. We have to wash the plates. Okay, now there's the dishwasher. How much time we had to wash clothes? Now the washing machine is there. So there are great inventions. And the yogis, in the morning, the yogis, when they take shower, they have some types of, it's not a prayer, it's like just a reminding those great people who invented the washing machine, the car, the internet, because it makes our life more simple on a physical level. But we see when science makes the things more simple on a physical level, then the mind gets more complicated. And so many mental diseases are there now. So we have, let's say, less physical effort to do because machines are doing it. But then this goes to the psychic level. And then if you're not able to balance your psychic dimension, then we see how many lunatics are there. We see how many people with depressions are there. So science has not resolved all the problems. Otherwise, we would not be in that crisis now.
I hear what you're saying. So we, especially here in the United States, but I think all over the world, we're bombarded with so much information. There's so many books, so many people telling us things, and so many, and a lot of misinformation. So we hear about spiritual phenomena, and experiences and things like that. What methods does spiritual science employ to investigate and validate spiritual phenomena?
Yeah, difficult question. I try to answer. There is psychic experience and there is spiritual experience. Personally, in my personal experience and by dealing with others, I see there is a lot of confusion between the two. What certain people say that's a spiritual experience, from my point of view, it is a psychic experience. So if certain people confuses these two, then there cannot be, I have to say, a valid investigation about that phenomenon. For example, there are certain moments when certain rituals are done, and due to sound, strong smell like incense, people sing, many people coming together. No, so when this happens, when the senses get excited in certain rituals, then people start to behave strangely, and they say that it is a spiritual experience. So I would say it's a psychic experience due to overstimulation of the senses. Okay, and sometimes people, when let's say I have seen certain when they do processions and they invoke a certain holy spirit or saint, and they start to beat their body with iron, and they inflict pain in the body, they get a force of a lot of endorphin in their body, and they don't seem to have any pain for it. And people think, oh, he's in a spiritual state. It's not for me. It's not. This is called also religious hysteria. Other people around also get hysteric when they see, oh, everybody feels close by. It's like if you go in a football stadium. I don't know in the US how it is, but if one they play football, soccer, then two camps against each other, and they're maybe very normal persons who go there and just watch. They are very normal person, very quiet person, but when they are inside a big mass of people and they get angry because something went wrong, they lost the game, and it was not right how they decided certain things. They get such a in short time such a anger. They try to destroy everything, but normally that person would never do. It is because the collective mind is influencing the individual mind, and that's a type of hysteria. Same can be applied in the religions. I must say most of that what I see from religious, um, I can deduct. If I have to investigate, I would say this is a type of trance, not spiritual trance, psychic experience, because they are involved into overstimulating their senses. They somehow lose the senses because it's too strong. Same happens also to those who think about the evil forces. The evil is there. So autosuggestion. If you create a lot of autosuggestion, you lose the contact with the objective mind. Or let's say the objective mind becomes so big because you think about the evil, the ghosts, whatever, that your witnessing entity, your entity that is witnessing this idea getting bigger, it becomes so big that you lose the witnessing entity, and for a short time you become that objective mind thinking about devil, about Satan, whatever. And that's not a spiritual experience. That is a psychic disease. what normally exercises are doing, they're getting close to the person and how to say, scolding the person, shouting on it, beating the person, putting strong smell in their nose. So they throw water there, they say it's a holy water, but they make their senses again awaken, and then the person says, oh, what happened? They went into their software. They sometimes imposed software. The society is imposing certain ideas, and that idea becomes so strong. So when I talk about spiritual phenomena in spirituality, it is mainly due to some spiritual exercise. There is also auto-suggestion in it. Okay, it's not so different. Auto-suggestion or ideation is also used in spiritual science, as in other science, psychic science. But the idea is to be one with that infinite love, with that infinite consciousness, with that infinite bliss. And by ideating on it, you get bliss. You don't get hysteria, or you don't get visions of devils. You get bliss. And after that, you can see the person is in a blissful state. It's not like completely exhausted for days and days. It doesn't shout out. It doesn't feel like some evil, some danger, some big fear is there. It's just in a peaceful state. That's because the Kula Kundalini, this energy, when it raised, it gives different states of bliss. In Tantra Yoga, these phenomena are called samadhi. Normally, there are 32 types of samadhi. So when the person is in that samadhi, that person has certain experience, certain phenomena. Normally, person in the beginning also, they start to cry. Their breathing system goes very low. They have a face like they lost somehow. And that remains a lot in their during the day. For days it can stay. Certain higher experience, person will lose even the capacity to sit properly. The whole body becomes completely stiff for some time because all the energy is focused on the highest pineal plexus. So certain sounds you can get, maybe this hum sound. This hum, it is when the Kula Kundalini goes up to the higher chakra. It's not a person has to do hum, 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 hum. No, it is something coming from within. You don't reproduce it. It is it's like an internal explosion of bliss. And that body is sometimes not able to keep that bliss. And then some people make this sound inside the body. So these are the phenomena that we consider healthy phenomena in a spiritual aspirant. When we see people rolling on the floor and shouting the devil or talking different languages or making the body shake, like we don't consider them as spiritual phenomena. So we have in our system of sadhana, of meditation, of spiritual science, there is description of that stage, but you cannot describe what is going inside. You can see some collateral feeling. No, for example, people who have the highest type of samadhi, it's called nirvikalpa samadhi. When Kundalini reaches the highest chakra, then you have become one with the supreme entity. You are actually the supreme entity. Normally, those people who get it, they cannot really work properly for 1 month. They are in such a state, it's like to be always in holiday. You don't care about what is happening at home, no? You don't care about it's not that they are indifferent, it's just they are so absorbed in that bliss. And when these people come in touch with other people, also those people get bliss. It's like contagious.
What a beautiful thought. So you've spent pretty much almost 2/3 of your life studying and practicing spiritual science. What do you see in the future for spiritual science? Where do you think it's heading?
I think it's heading towards positive results. I think there's a big crisis going on in the human history, maybe one of the biggest crises. And what's about that crisis? We have reached a good level of physical science, a good level of mental science, education. I wouldn't say all human beings, but at least also in the West, we got a good insight about how matter function. We don't have all complete items, but just knowing it and having the pleasure of physical and mental science doesn't give you that realization. You are not, the thirst for happiness, infinite happiness is there in the human being. So the soul is very hungry. Consciousness wants to eat, drink infinite. Mind wants to expand, but it's still under bondage. So I think human beings, by getting more and more educated rationally, having more scientific discoveries, having more physical comfort, having more time to interrelate with what is still to conquer internally, they will need to embrace spiritual science. Physical pleasure doesn't last long. Mental pleasure, it's a bit longer. But spiritual pleasure, let's say bliss, it's very long. So everybody is longing for a long bliss, long pleasure. So because human beings want pleasure, and for that you have to have a desire. It's just, we are not against desires. Certain, let's say, spiritual or pseudo-spiritual doctrines are saying that we should be without desire. It is in the nature of mind to have desires. So we just have to channelize that desire. We have to see which desire gives me the highest expression, which is the most lasting one. And we know, without now going into the physical, into the spiritual desire or spiritual bliss, those people who have enjoyed physical desire, food, sex, drugs, sleeping, whatever, after some time, when they come in contact with science, with art, with internet, it's also psychic, they get a longer pleasure. It lasts longer. So when they say, let's go for a walk, they say, no, I have to see this movie, I have to surf on the internet. It gives them pleasure. So we are moving very fast. We are already in a psychic age. We will move more and more. And at the end, there will be some frustration there. Because you can surf as much as you like. You can click on so many things that you like or don't like. You can buy the things with one click and you get the everyday like Christmas package in your house. But after sometimes you say, okay, it doesn't give you pleasure anymore, or it gives you a little. So the longing for long pleasure, deeper pleasure, will be always there. And that you can satisfy only the moment you merge yourself into the deepest I feeling that we have. And for that, you need a science, you need a system, you need a method, a practical, and you need people who teach you that. You cannot alone understand such a subtle thing in the beginning. So I think spirituality, spiritual science will be the demand for the future. Not everybody, of course, but many, more than now.
So speaking on that demand, so let's say somebody in our audience right now, or how would someone interested in diving deeper into spiritual science, what resources, how would you recommend, where would you guide them?
They have, first of all, to come in contact with those who are already into that. If I want to learn how to surf, I go first of all and find some surf teacher, somebody who knows that. So that's if I want to learn any musical instrument, I can try myself. But if I have somebody who is playing that instrument for so long, I will learn faster. And time is an important factor. Our time is very limited. Life is very short. So if you have a proper guidance, then you can learn in short time. So first of all, go to somebody, some acharya, who has the knowledge about how to teach you, when to teach you, and what to teach you at what time. In spiritual science, everything will be there when the proper time comes. So you don't get the whole package immediately. There are people who takes maybe 1-2 years to go into a certain meditation. Then we change it in another one. Then we add certain elements on food. Then maybe we also tell the person, maybe you stop certain things, you do other things. It's a science, so you need scientists who are already there working on it and having the personal experience, what to do and what not to do. And I think that would be the first. To improvise, I wouldn't suggest it. If there would be nobody around, okay, you have to improvise. But because cosmic mind has already, since thousands of years, has given this knowledge, also this knowledge has been given to others, and it should be like service-minded. The person who is teaching you this type of science should be service-minded. There should be not money in it, should not business in it. That's one of the first characteristics. If there is business, it's not a spiritual science. Because spiritual science is given by great gurus, by great teachers who give this for free as a service. Spirituality as a service, not as a business. So when you have this spiritual science should be given for free. The only thing is the person should get according to their physical or mental state there, and that needs some expertise to understand if you teach meditation or certain spiritual exercises to a child. No, I can teach something to a 5-year-old boy, but when he's 13, I teach him something else. When he's 24, something else. I may introduce certain physical exercises if he has time to do them. If he has not time to do, I will not teach. Otherwise, they will do the physical part of yoga, for example, and they will not do the mental part or the spiritual part. And that will not give them the experience of longer bliss. They may have some healthy body, they can live long, but they don't get to the spiritual dimension. So an acharya teacher should always be there seeing where this person is going. How can I help that person to reach that goal? Maybe sometimes also reproaching that person. It's not like a child that wants everything. I want this lesson, that lesson, that. Please, I'm already 20 years knowing you. You give me only 4 lessons. The other one just came yesterday. He has already 2. The other one, after 2 years, to give him all the lessons. It has to do something with their discipline, with their harmony, they're living in the society, with the family. No, if one is just using spiritual science to withdraw from the society, to withdraw from the responsibility, it's dangerous. One should not teach certain practices to people who are not involved into the society. They should be there giving their energy, the positive energy to the society. They should sacrifice the time for the betterment of the society. It's a part of expanding the mind. So I would suggest those who are interested to see if this criteria are there in the teachers, and then do what the teacher tell you. That's the first secret of having a success. So to have teachers that give you something to do.
Thank you. Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I really appreciate that insight. And yeah, I mean, gosh, you've covered so much here on spiritual science. I feel like I've gained a lot of knowledge, and I really appreciate you taking your time and sharing your experience, your insight, your intellect. What a fascinating subject, and I think it's something we probably could talk about for hours and hours and days, but I'm hoping that our audience really was able to get, the kind of broad view of spiritual science, and that will inspire, what you were talking about, kind of a hopeful future with spiritual science being a path forward. So it's fat.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you would like to leave us with before we say goodbye today?
Maybe just one thought came in my mind. My master, Sri Shandamurti, said one very short sentence. If you want to know all know one. So by diverting the mind in so many directions, it's okay, but how much can you deepen all the different science around? But if you know who is behind the curtain, who is the hub of all the science, of all the thoughts, of all the vibration, if you know that, if you know one, you know all. But if you want to know all, you may not everything. So that's what I want to share. So I think it's good to deepen any science. It's good that people who are doing it for as a job, it's very good. They should share it with others. That's also good. But life is very short. So spiritual science is the essence of all the science.
Fantastic. Thank you. What a wonderful story to end with. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.